David Goss and Andrew Wiebe here at the StubHub Center in Carson, California for the final day of the 2017 MLS Player Combine. Kicking off here, Team Copa versus Team Control, the last chance for these young players to prove themselves to a host of MLS, USL, and coaches around the world before the 2017 SuperDraft kicking off tomorrow, 3 p.m. Eastern Time on MLSsoccer.com. Andrew, a lot of excitement for us when we saw these lineups as Kristen Tieryoung pushes up the field. We'll get to it in a minute on these starting teams, but only 30-minute halves here, so 60 minutes for these players, one final chance to prove themselves for these coaches.
Yeah, that makes sense. You cut down on the minutes here. They've been playing games every other day, and yes, they've been in and out. They haven't played 90, but at this point, with the break, with everything that's been going on in their lives, with all the interviews, it's probably best to see them in these short, controlled bursts.
Epps getting down the wing. He gets his foot to that cross, and it goes out. If you notice the player on the ball there up top at number 46 in blue for Team Copa, beating a couple defenders, that's Jeremy Ibobise out of Duke University, Generation Adidas signing. Andrew, the first time we're seeing him here in this competition or combine, and by many, the unanimous number one selection coming tomorrow in the draft.
That certainly seems to be the feeling right now. Of course, those things can change and trades can happen, but for the first 2 days, we've been waiting to see this player, and now we'll see him in a 30-minute stint here in the first half. You imagine he won't play the whole game, but a talented forward who signed early out of Duke University after 2 years. He scored 9 goals. He had 7 assists in those first 2 years at Duke, and then moved on, signed with MLS, and scored a couple goals for Charleston Battle. I should say scored 1, created 1.
DeFlowery with the shot, and it's knocked away. Him and Ibobise almost connecting. Jake McGuire, number 12 out of Tulsa, in goal for Team Blue, Team Copa. From right to left on the back line, Aaron Jones, number 49. Lalis Abubakar on the ball right here, number 44, who's been very good at center back. Joe Rimstad will partner him. And at left back here, number 50, Iman Mafi. In holding midfield, it'll be Kwame Awua on the ball right now out of UConn, number 40. He has in front of him from left to right, Suhaib Deflawi, Lindo Mofeka, number 53. Ja'Cory Hayes next to him, playing a little bit higher today. And Marcus Epps, number 47, out on that right wing at the University of South Florida, who's been very bright throughout this combine. And up top, as I mentioned, Jeremy Ibobise, number 46, out of Duke University. He played the last year out of college under a Generation Adidas contract with the Charleston Battery and the USU 20 team as Hayes puts one across the face of goal.
Hayes, another guy we're watching in this game. He played defensive midfield on the first day and didn't show as well as we thought he might farther up the field. Now he's up the field, and you see that little dip of the shoulder, a good ball across, but Mafi just can't quite get to it.
And Andrew, don't want to read too much into anything very early, but Team Copa has played well at times in this combine, but it's been counterattacking, little spots here and there. Ibobise comes in. They've now dominated the ball these opening 4 or 5 minutes, moved it around the box. They've looked more in control than we've seen them this entire combine.
No doubt about that. And Julian Gressel will be the one for Team Control who's trying to grab the scruff of the game. The central midfielder out of Providence, signed already a senior deal. The German here, a lot of rave reviews about him, his physicality, his ability on the ball. He strikes a heavy shot. We'll see if he can help pull Control back. But also Jackson Ewell for Team Control has really impressed. The 19-year-old at UCLA, a Generation Adidas signing, a guy some coaches have compared to a Dax McCarty in conversations this week.
Matsoso with the through ball to Gressel. Gressel onside and misses just wide. You talked about his ability, the Providence Friar. He's played at wing, central midfield, and second forward throughout his college career as well as at this combine. For Team Control in white, going left to right. Eric Klanovsky in goal, coming in as the top-rated goalkeeper, Andrew. A shaky second day, so he has a lot to prove here today.
Yeah, his hands let him down a little bit on that second day. Had a few balls go through him, was out of position on a goal from Nico Hansen, in which he was just kind of out in no man's land. A good turn by Nico, but that was one he'll want back. He has something to prove here, but these combines, difficult to judge goalkeepers. We've heard that from a lot of different coaches. If there's not shooting opportunities, if there's not opportunities for them to stand out, they're basically standing around for large stretches. And in the past, meaning 20 years ago or so, these combines had some goalkeeper trainings, according to Siggy Schmidt, that made it a little bit easier. But the tape is what will tell the tale on most of these players. These are final evaluations from the coaches, but they've been scouting all season, and unless they get a little bit overeager on the combine, most of what their decision-making will come from are those games during the season.
4 team control left to right. That's Jacob Nerwinski on the ball, the left back playing today out of UConn. He's played right back throughout this competition. Jordan Wilson, number 34, will be next to him at center back, partnered with Danilo Rajan out of Akron. And this is a Dewey Ochum, number 29, charging forward. The Maryland Terrapin, he puts a cross in. It's knocked down in the box. Still alive. A Dewey Ochum back on the ball, and offside will be called.
A good run from a Dewey Ochum, but I'm looking at the ball from Jackson Ewell, and we talked a little bit about maybe a Dax McCarty comparison. Deeper in the midfield is where most coaches right now see him likely to play. Probably at the number 8, maybe not big enough at this point in his career, not physical enough to play the number 6, and perhaps not a true number 10. In MLS, that tends to go to a TAM player, a luxury player, a guy that you pick up with a proven track record. Ewell was great at UCLA last year, but he certainly doesn't have that as a pro. But what we've been hearing is that while he has incredible talent, it may be a few years before he's a consistent contributor in MLS. And he's 19 years old, so that's no shame to him. And you look at a Dax McCarty comparison, it took Dax time, and now he's one of the best players in the league, of course, back with the U.S. national team. But that's a very flattering comparison. If that's who he is to become, there's no reason he won't go in the top 5, and I think that's very likely as it is. As
you mentioned, Jackson Ewell, number 36, he'll sit in that holding midfield role behind a line of 4 midfielders in front of him and 1 forward. He will have Napo Matsoso and Julian Gressel right in front of him in the central midfield. All 3 of those players have shown to be high possession players. Out wide right, number 32, Christian Tieryoung, we've seen be active, and out wide left, Zico Lewis, number 26, who's got 3 goals for himself so far in this combine, already signed to a Major League Soccer contract at a Boston college. And up top, Guillermo Delgado, number 21 from the University of Delaware, Fighting Blue Hens. Delgado sitting on the back of that center back right there. He was the active leading goal scorer in college soccer over the last 4 years, a Herman Mack finalist and preseason player watch list 3 times in his college career. He had a big first day, a quieter second day here at the Combine.
I want to go back to Zico Lewis a little bit because you see him inverted with that left foot oftentimes, but he's a player, if you're looking at trends in MLS, where you're seeing those 4-2-3-1s, those 4-3-3s that sometimes transition to 4-2-3-1s. He's a guy who can play in one of those wide positions. He's fast, he's aggressive, he likes to cut in, he can find a pass, but his instinct around goal has been very good. And a couple of those goals off PKs, but you like to see him take that responsibility as well.
Andrew, one of the things that we find interesting looking at this draft is you have that top, you have Minnesota and Atlanta, who, of course, building expansion teams. You have some question marks over the top talents if they're players that can play today and make differences today. It seems like, though, at the back end of this first round, between picks 10 and 22, there might be a bunch of guys who can do a job in the top 14 or 15 of a number of MLS rosters, but they're not going to be star players and key players. And so it's tough, it seems like, to manage those first 1 through 10 picks of what you're going to go after.
Yeah, I think it comes down to team-by-team basis. What are you looking for? In the first 5 picks, you got to go talent. You've got to go overall ability and hope that they fit into your team in some way. And if you're looking for a difference maker in the draft, and that's the crux of your season, that's not going to be probably the best strategy for you. You want to find those in discovery, maybe through development over years and years and years.
Dewey Ochum coming forward. He gets the cross away. It's knocked down at the far post by Jones and cleared out. That through ball from Gressel once again.
But we have heard from coaches that there are guys they think that contribute all the way into the second round. Of course, 4 rounds in this draft, but it's about finding the right fit.
DeFlowey cuts in field. Suhaib DeFlowey, one of the youth international players brought over for this combine, coming over from Denmark, where he's still on contract at FC Nordsjælland. Born in Denmark to Tunisian parents, including a dad who played a little professional ball in Tunisia and France. And his uncles, he said as well, were some top-line strikers in the Tunisian Pro League. He had a number of youth internationals out here, a bunch of mechanisms as we expect for Major League Soccer to bring players in. Exciting news, though, coming down yesterday, Andrew, that there's a new mechanism this year, Generation Adidas Canadian players, adding Shamit Shom and Adonijah Reed, who we could see in this game. 2 players that don't count against your cap for teams, but also don't count as internationals. 3 more Canadian players added to that list as Jones makes the clean tackle, puts it out for a corner kick. In Chris Nanko, Brian Wright, as well as Kwame Awua, who we see on the field today.
Yeah, a good sign for Canada. And, of course, a big part of their development is getting players into pro environments in which teams have a reason to hold on to him. And that international status is really, really tough for some rosters, especially when you have 8 slots and you're saying, look, we need difference makers. We can't take a chance on young players. That's a good sign for the Canadian system, for college soccer, in which a lot of Canadian players play as well. Our own Sam Stejskal breaking that news, and he's certainly a must-follow over this week at the Combine.
The Sal Palantonio, of course, of Major League Soccer. Sam Stejskal.
I'm more partial to Brian Schefter, I think.
Adam. Brian Schmetzer. Adam Schefter.
My NFL knowledge these days quite low. I'm more into football.
Nice.
Not football.
The beautiful game out here in StubHub Center, Carson, California. We've been here all week. One more day of action left. And then the MLS SuperDraft. 2017 season has begun. Folks, you got 2 weeks off, and now you get exactly what you want. Standing over this free kick, it's Zico Lewis, number 26, and Napo Matsoso. Matsoso running over. Now Lewis, and the left-footed shot goes high of the crossbar. You mentioned Zico Lewis. He's played out on the right wing throughout the first 2 games, playing out on that left wing today. He scored a gorgeous goal, chipping the goalkeeper from 20 yards out, running onto a ball in the last game, and he's put 2 penalty kicks away as well.
Yeah, he's looked good. And when you look at these positional changes, we talked about a few of them. Awuo would be one as well. Coaches want to see these players in different spots. They're out here to evaluate. This is not to see a player in his best position 100% of the time. You want to see where he may be able to fit in for your squad because, like I said, for most of these players, they're not going to walk into teams and be starters. They need to find ways to contribute.
Ibo Bise winning that header up over Gressel. As his team now knocks around Ja'Cory Hayes, number 48, on the ball in blue. He gets knocked down. He was one of the prime starters for Wake Forest on their run to the College Cup this year. He played deeper at defensive midfield in the first game. Andrew, he's now been pushed up the field. Very high on him coming into the draft. Matt Doyle had him as the top-rated senior getting drafted. He's dropped out of that conversation maybe, but this looks like it might be a more comfortable position for him.
Yeah, and I think that's what a lot of coaches are looking at here with Ja'Cory Hayes. What is his position in the pros? A little bit of a tweener, a guy on the smaller end. Certainly that's size is not a prerequisite to succeed in soccer. You look around the world, you look at MLS, that's not required, but you do need to have a feeling for where he best fits, for where he can best contribute, and right now I think coaches are trying to figure that out. Wake Forest, fairly dominant, very good in possession, very good technically, had a lot of good players around him, but where does he fit in when he's not a standout on the field, when he gets to the pros and he's just another guy? They've got to find the right position for him, and that's where you come down to fit. What team can see in their system a place for him to be successful?
Turnover here from Ewell, going back the other way. Mafeka trying to lay it in the path of DeFlowey. Klanowski able to get it under control right in front of him.
Good recovery speed there from Adui Achim.
Achim now goes back the other way up the right wing to the feet of Gressel. Gressel trying to get into the path of Delgado. Intercepted there by Rimstad. Kwame Awua, number 40, on the ball. Mention him as one of those now Canadian players that won't count as international spots. He started this competition or this combine at left back, played at attacking midfield, and now playing in holding midfield today for Team Copa. Tieryoung and Mafi battling it out. Epps coming over across the field. He'll curl a shot just past Ibo Bise's head and out for a goal kick. Ibo Bise, though, once again, these opening 15 minutes has been a presence.
He has, and you saw his little touch there, the little hold-up play with his back to goal. Teams want to see that as well. He's got a lot of promise, and you talked to Adrian Heath about him. Of course, Minnesota United have the number 1 overall pick. He likes what he sees. He's not tipping his hand, of course, but when you see a player miss out on the first 2 days, you start to think, oh, what's going on behind the scenes here? Because the Combine isn't just about raising your stock. Sometimes it's also an opportunity for your stock to drop, and when it's sky high and people are saying, hey, this guy's number 1 overall, that's where you see a little bit of gamesmanship start to be played by the teams at the top, by agents, by the player themselves. But good to see him get a little look today. I think all of us were looking forward to that as the Combine started.
And an interesting story for him just because he hasn't been out of soccer for the year, but he didn't play for Duke. He signed with Major League Soccer because he was looking to go overseas as well maybe. Played with the Charleston Battery, as I mentioned, on loan. 5 games, 1 goal, a gorgeous goal against FC Montreal. You can go online and find that as Epps gets up the field. Turned over. DeFlowey finds the feet of Hayes. Hayes to Ibo Bise, and it's knocked away. He's played incredibly with the U.S. U20s over the course of this year as well, Andrew. 9 appearances, 8 goals for him. blowing up against Costa Rica here in Carson earlier this year. So it's tough, though, for coaches to judge. He didn't put up eye-popping numbers in college, but neither did Kyle Larin. And you have that tough part for every coach as Mafeka gets it to the box. 5 cuts, and the cross finally blocked away. Now Mafi with the left-footed cross, and that shot will roll out of bounds. How to judge a guy? How to project him to that next level?
Yeah, look, what I've liked from him so far is his movement and his feeling for where he should be as these plays build up. You saw that Mafeka really put Aduiachim on his heels there, and that's something coaches will watch as well, because that right back spot, you got to be able to defend 1v1 in isolation. But I've liked his little movement. He's finding pockets of space. The final touch, the final shot is not there yet so far, but that's what you want to see from him is the instincts up top, instincts as a goal scorer. And although he hasn't shown that a ton, teams think he has that ability. Of course, just 19 years old, I believe, so has some time to figure that out. But we'll see. A guy like Adrian Heath, you look at Dom Dwyer, you look at Kyle Larin, could be an ideal mentor, an ideal coach for him. We'll have to see what happens tomorrow, but I know a lot of offers coming in for that number 1 pick.
Yeah, and if you're interested, you can go online. Coming up, a ETR special. Me and Andrew recorded a sit-down with Adrian Heath, about 25 minutes. He talked about his passion training young strikers, who he likes to show them, how he likes to teach them, take them on the side as Mafeka beats Gressel after practice, during practice, and work with them. And as you mentioned, some good young strikers he's been able to improve, as Jones is called offside. There's questions with Ibo Bise about if he is a pure goal scorer, if he is a pure number 9. I think when you hear about coaches talk about him and GMs talk about him, you can think Teal Bunbury, Juan Agudelo, guys that have kind of been shifted in and out of that center forward role. And a lot of players struggle with people want to pigeonhole them. They want to find one spot that they fit. He's looked very big and very strong, though, out there so far. I think that was a question mark in whether or not he could play as a true number 9 in Major League Soccer.
Yeah, no doubt about that. And all these guys are going to have to figure that out when they get into the pro environment. But you look across the board at these combine prospects, I'm not sure there is a pure goal scorer per se. Abu Danladi is maybe the guy that most coaches say is the most ready to contribute, perhaps, based on his physical abilities, but he's not really that guy either. He's more of a tweener in the sense that he can play all these different positions up top as well, and you're trying to find the best position for him. But that's what they're trying to see here. Some instincts, the runs. Do you have the right timing? Do you see the pass before it comes? Coach is looking out for all those things. But certainly I don't think if you asked all 22 staffs here, none of them are saying, hey, we're going to get a guy in this draft that's going to produce double-digit goals for us. That's a pipe dream. That's not going to happen. Most rookies do not do that. Kyle Larin is certainly a rarity.
Jordan Morris.
Yeah, in that case. Hey, look, Jordan Morris, a little bit different. He wasn't at the Combine, a homegrown for Seattle, of course, but a guy with U.S. national team caps as well. So maybe not a pure goal scorer in this draft, but I would argue, Dave, that Jordan Morris didn't come out as a pure goal scorer either.
An argument that you can have with yourself, because I wasn't going to argue back with you. Up the line now, Nerwinski in a battle with Epps. Epps wins it over for Team Copa and then clears it off of Jacob Nerwinski. Nerwinski's a guy that we were impressed by, Andrew, on the first day. Coming up from right back, he's a UConn guy. He put up some of the best numbers in the physical testing before the start of the Combine in terms of speed and lateral quickness. Now he's shifted out to left back. And a lot for coaches to see in terms of, I think, his soccer IQ there.
Yeah, and it's tough because both he and Aduiachim are both predominantly right backs. So,
Klinowski.
A little bit of a tough moment there, and I think the right call from the referee. But putting Klinowski in a tough position there, you got to have a back on each side. And if they want to see Aduiachim at right back, Nerwinski's in a tough position. But that's an opportunity for him perhaps to show off what he can do with his left foot, what he can do technically, because he's in a little bit of different position. Does he understand tactically both sides, what he needs to be able to do? I mean, this is an audition ultimately. That's what must be remembered, and not every audition is going to put you in the position you're most comfortable. Sometimes coaches want to see how you'll respond when you're in a spot that you're not exactly familiar with.
Aduiachim lays it back. You look at the draft list right now, Vancouver Whitecaps FC at 7, Atlanta United, if they keep that pick at 8, two teams that could potentially use a right back. So you might be able to see Aduiachim, Nerwinski, Colton Storm.
Colton Storm's looked very good.
One of those come off the list
but
there.
Colton Storm struggled when moved to left back. So you kind of see the difference when these guys are in their preferred position, on their preferred foot. The entry passes are a little bit more straightforward. The muscle memory is there for them. And you're tested. It's not always about the good moments here at the Combine. Sometimes coaches are looking at the bad moments as well.
Awui explodes into open space and then loses the ball. Klinovsky now trying to clear it off. His back line turns it over to Epps, number 47 in blue, going forward. Epps lays it out wide for Jones, who's able to keep it in and puts it off of Nerwinski. I think Jones has been understatedly good as well at right back, but
quietly solid.
An English player, so an international would take up that spot for a team. A corner kick now coming for Team Copa. Lawless Abubakar and Joe Rimstad coming forward from center back. Of course, with Ibo Bise in there, some more size up front. We see the Donajah Reed up there. Not much size for him.
A little different for him.
Not much of a target. Corner kick coming now. It looks like Kwame Awua and Mafeka on the ball up top to Hayes. Ja'Cory Hayes with room to shoot, and that left-footed shot he blasts high. Takes a deflection. And he'll go out for a corner kick. Ja'Cory Hayes coming in from Wake Forest, playing alongside Ian Harkes in his career there. Ian Harkes potentially signing on as a homegrown player with DC United. His dad, John Harkes, here to scout for FC Cincinnati. It'll be DeFlowey now, the right-footed corner at the near post. Headed up in the air, back over, and we'll do this all over again.
The rain coming down now here at StubHub Center, and that's been a consistent feature of the Combine and of this week in Los Angeles. I think a lot of folks came out here expecting some sunshine, maybe some beautiful days for these games, but it's been pretty wet.
DeFlowey once again. Cleared away, still alive in the box. A battle between these two sides, and Team Control finally gets it out. Awua now plays it wide to Mafeka. Mafeka one-on-one with Zico Lewis. Tries to play a 1-2 with his college teammate, and Epps can't keep control of the ball. Awua recovers it for Team Copa. And now Mafi goes wide to the feet of DeFlowey. DeFlowey, we've seen, loves to take his defenders on one-on-one. Team Copa cycling through midfield. Awua to Jones. Jones drives the ball and knocked away. Team Copa trying to get a shot away off this corner kick, but finally Team Control can get possession. Julian Gressel showing a little bit of strength there, Andrew.
Yeah, Julian Gressel, physically you've seen in the midfield what he's able to do. He's really bullied other players at times, and I think coaches are like that. You look at some of these guys that maybe can come in and make an impact a few years in, and now joined there by Sam Stejskal coming in, our very own Adam Schefter, not Brian Schefter, but
he called you Brian Schefter because it was Brian Schmetzer and Adam Schefter.
I'm definitely more Brian Schefter than Adam Schefter. I think that's for sure. How's it going, guys?
It's going pretty well. How about you, Sam?
I'm doing well. What do we think of Ebo Bise so far today?
Ibo Bise.
Thank you for correcting me.
We've been extremely impressed in the small time we've seen. He looks like a strong number 9. What have you been hearing?
Yeah, it looks the part, right? Definitely kind of has the body to hang with it, play up top by himself. Hasn't gotten a ton of service today, but decent when he's been on the ball. So been liking what I've seen so far for the potential number 1 pick here.
Is that the assumption? Is that what you're hearing from coaches?
No, I mean, I don't want to say that much. I mean, for me personally, there are a few things that kind of point to me as him with the number 1 pick. First, the fact that he showed up late to the Combine because he was with the USU 20s. It wasn't like he was sitting at home. But the fact that he showed up late, didn't play in the first two match days. That's kind of telling that he might have heard something from somebody that he might be getting picked. That said, I know Minnesota are interviewing everybody, so we'll see. We'll see how it plays out tomorrow. But definitely a candidate. I wouldn't expect him to drop past 2, though.
And what are you hearing about Dunladi? He's a player that we discussed. There's some question marks around him off the field, but we've heard that he interviewed very well yesterday.
Yeah, that's what I heard too, actually. And I heard he interviewed well with Minnesota, as a matter of fact. And, the question mark off the field thing, I'm kind of a little bit uneasy with that. I wish these guys that are saying those things would just come out and say what they mean. Yeah. Because it's not, character issues. That can mean any number of things, right? And that's kind of what the scuttlebutt's been. From what I understand, what that means is they're a little bit worried about the fact that he missed a decent amount of games at UCLA and had to come out of a decent amount of games. So there's some injury concerns. And then the other thing, I guess, is just kind of training habits, that sort of deal. But those are things that, for a talented guy like him, obviously you want them to be excellent from the jump. But for a talented guy like him, maybe he's a lot more skillful than the college teammates he's playing with. Not that that's necessarily the case at UCLA, but those can be learned a little bit.
Top end of the draft, top, let's say, 6, 7 picks. Is there anyone that consensus out there that is most ready to make a difference this year?
In terms of this year, I don't know if there's really a consensus. A lot of people like Ebobisse. But it really, as you guys know, it depends on the situation, right? It depends on the fit. If you get an Ebobisse going to Minnesota who don't have a lot of forwards right now, you could see him getting a decent amount of.
Ramirez.
They have Christian Ramirez, but behind him they don't have a ton of depth, right? So you could see him getting a decent amount of run. If he goes to an Atlanta where they have a decent amount of attacking players already in place, then maybe it's a little bit different. Same thing with Dan Lottie. One guy. I kind of like Jackson Ewell. I'm a little bit. He's like a super clean player, very, very just calm, skilled on the ball, always looking to go forward. I kind of like him at Houston. Maybe not as a guy that can jump in right at day one. I'm a little bit worried about his size personally because I don't think he's a number 10. I don't think he's a number 6, and I'm a little interested to see how well he can kind of track and do the defensive work as a number 8. But in terms of a guy that's clean on the ball and is still going to physically grow and develop and maybe get a little bit faster, I think he's a good one and definitely a guy that could contribute certainly down the road and be a solid MLS player.
Epps charging forward there down the right wing. He gets that shot away.
And then
a touch from Klonowski out for a corner kick.
One other note for you guys here, kind of not draft related, but hearing Brad Guzan to Atlanta might have to wait until the summer. So there's some issues there. Obviously, he's with Middlesbrough at the moment. Atlanta have 2 DPs on the books in Miguel Almiron and Hector Villalba. They want to sign one more, and they don't want that to be a goalkeeper. Guzan is obviously going to be above the max budget charge, so he's going to be in that DP territory.
Shot followed up here, Ebobisse, and neither of them can go in. Wow. The initial shot from Epps, Rimstad, and Ebobisse. Following that one up, Eric Klonowski making up for a tough second day.
Yeah, it won't actually be the lack of a finish there that coaches pay attention to, though. It's the rebound from Klonowski that he allowed. That probably should have been a goal, that one right out in front of him. But a good stop there and gets back. Ebobisse with a golden opportunity to get his name on the score sheet here. A little bit more composure. He had plenty of time. That's one that you note and say, okay, maybe a little bit of rust for the young man. It's been a long winter break.
Mafeka threw for Ebobisse, and he can't pick it up. So, Sam, we've heard.
Sorry for stepping on your toes a little bit there.
We've heard Guzan locked in, though.
I don't think it's an issue of them getting him. It's just win. So basically, they want to be able to use targeted allocation money on him to buy him under the DP threshold. They won't be able to do that in January because it looks like Middlesbrough isn't going to let him out of his contract.
So they'd have to pay the transfer fee, which
exactly.
would make him over.
So if they pay the transfer fee and throw in the salary, you're not able to buy down with TAM for the amount because you have to add those two together. So they might have to wait until he's out of contract at the end of the season. But, that could change, too, if Middlesbrough decides, hey, you can go.
Have we heard anything? So they trade Sean Johnson to the NYCFC about what the plan would be to get themselves to that summer.
I would assume Alec Khan. They picked him up earlier in the offseason. He's a Georgia guy.
A guy that Sporting Kansas City liked.
Yeah, a guy that Sporting Kansas City and played a few games for them last year, I believe. So, a little stopgap solution. But you're probably looking at if he's not able to come until summer, you're looking at probably around half the games. We'll see how it shakes out with the schedule and all that stuff later today, though.
Gressel gets the cross away. It's taken easily by Maguire here. Final moments of this first half, as these games will be 30-minute halves to give these players a chance to try and rest their legs a little bit after 3 days of competition. Anything stood out from you, either of you, in this first half?
It's just that first look at Ebobisse, and that was not a great moment from him in front of goal, but you can start to see some of the instincts, some of the movement, some of the feel for the game. 30 minutes is not much. Nobody's going to look at this and say, this is why we're taking them. This is a confirmation of what we thought, or this disproves what we thought. It's just an opportunity to familiarize yourself with him once again before tomorrow, before 3 p.m. Eastern on Friday when the SuperDraft goes down. We'll see if his name is called number 1.
Yeah, I'd basically echo what Weeby said there. I mean, I think this half is probably all about Ibo Biseh, at least for the teams towards the top. Another good look at a guy, Chris Adoy-Atcham, who's considered one of the top fullbacks in the class here, as well as a couple of other guys who have shown decently, a couple other guys that are signed already to MLS deals. So, yeah, but definitely all about Ibo Biseh, rather.
Whatever it is for Sam Stejsko, it must be right. Our Adam Schefter in the house.
Stop.
The rain really starting to come down here at StubHub Center as we are into our final minutes of this first half. Team Copa versus Team Control. The final 10 minutes or so of this one. Napo Matsoso getting tangled up with Ja'Cory Hayes. And a free kick earned and quickly taken from Gressel. One of the things we've seen from him, Andrew, is his intelligence, his quickness on the ball, his soccer IQ.
Yeah, he finds the right pass. He's in the right places at the right time, and sometimes his technical abilities let him down a little bit here in the Combine. But you see the pieces, you see the foundation that'll allow him to be a solid pro at the next level. And he may not be a guy that comes in as a huge difference maker, but he can be a contributor. But remember, he's on the older end. Julian Gressel is. So he's a guy when you look at and you say, okay, well, he looks really good out here. He is playing against younger players, and that certainly matters. It's a 23-year-old. You see Team Copa headed into the box here. Deflawi, very nearly gets the shot away, but Adoy-Atcham with some good 1v1 defending on the right flank.
Deflawi's shot knocked away, and it'll be another corner kick coming here for Team Copa. Blue team going right to left in this one. Deflawi getting himself into the box and quickly taking corner kick. Goes short. Ja'Cory Hayes on the top of the box. Another chance to shoot. This one's blocked by Adoy-Atcham. Excuse me. Yes.
8 goals his senior year, led Wake Forest. So Ja'Cory Hayes has a little bit of ability there in and around the box. But a good shot there blocked down.
Hayes, a DMV guy, we heard John Wall fan. He's also very friendly with a few players in Major League Soccer already that he's asked some questions to. He said he was training with Jordan Allen just before coming here. Allen, another player, positionally who's very versatile, but also hasn't yet solidified himself to become an expert at any position and has been floated around by RSL early on in his career. Matsoso with the tackle off the feet of Deflawi. Matsoso earned a penalty kick in the first half for his team in the last game that Zico Lewis dispatched. Jones coming forward with the blast. Scored an unbelievable goal from a similar distance against Clemson in his Georgia State career. He then transferred to Clemson. It's always a good idea to score against good teams, I guess. They'll just pick you up.
And here's the thing to remember when we're talking about Hayes and a guy like Jordan Allen. They're the same age. And Allen's got a number of years in the pros. He's got plenty of pro appearances. There's a difference here. And Allen has the experience. Hayes has some skills. He's trying to break in. But these homegrown players at times, when they can get into the professional environment early, it gives them a leg up. 48 games played in MLS already for Jordan Allen.
It really starts to pour here at StubHub Center. The shortly taking corner kick. Zico Lewis. To the feet of Gressel, and Gressel's shot is blocked. These two teams still looking for the initial breakthrough. Team Control was explosive in the first half of the first game, Andrew, as we stopped for an injury. Daniel Johnson put on a show in that one. Zico Lewis, Guillermo Delgado, Julian Gressel, everything was working for them. Doyle saying it was one of the most impressive Combine 45-minute outfield performances he'd seen. A little bit slower in this game. I think you could say a solid performance, but they've definitely struggled at times with Ibo Biseh and the players around him attacking their back line.
Not a ton of clear chances in this match so far, and that's one of the things that I think coaches would like to see more of. More opportunities to see how players respond in goal-scoring positions in front of net. Julian Gressel, though, as you can tell, hits a heavy shot. Ja'Cory Hayes took that one right in the midsection, and he's still trying to recover from it.
Of course, coming up in the second half, we'll get to see a number of players off the bench for these two sides. For Team Control in white, Daniel Johnson out of University of Louisville was a player, as I mentioned, who was huge in the first game. Another strong game in the second game, showed an ability to do a couple different things. And then, of course, shot up Matt Doyle's mock draft.
But a couple teams I talked to said, yeah, he looked great in that first day, but we knew about this kid.
Yeah.
We knew he was a talent, and sometimes
they sounded a little upset.
Yeah, a little bit upset that maybe what they saw and what they knew was now being transmitted to the other coaching staffs in real time, in person. We'll see how that affects his draft status, but a guy that people are talking about certainly right now is a possible first-round pick.
Lewis and Ewell able to work Ibobise off the ball after Awua turned away from his defender. A good 1-2, but Lewis's touch a little bit too long. Jalen Brown out of Xavier. Jolito Fernandez as well could be coming off the bench for team control. At the back, Justin Schmidt out of the University of Washington, who we've talked about a lot. Andrew, a big hulking center back out of the University of Washington, we should expect to see as well in that second half.
Yeah, people still wanting to see how clean he can be on the ball, but also physically, can he keep up with quicker players on the turn? That's a big question mark for a lot of center backs in this draft, and just overall, that's a feature of the modern game that you got to be able to deal with. Is your anticipation good enough to sniff those out early? And if not, physically, can you keep up and cut angles?
Abu Bakar looking very composed, Andrew, on the ball in this game. Winning that turnover, able to work Delgado off away from the ball. Now he'll be under some pressure. Zico Lewis with the interception. Rimstad with the first touch lands to Delgado's foot, and he blasts his shot well over the top.
But those are some situations that you want to see these players in. A little bit of an emergency defending scenario, a little bit of panic. It's not about that turnover. Coaches will certainly note that. But it's about seeing, hey, 2v2 in open space. Can Abu Bakar, can Rimstad deal with these attacking players?
Lalas Abubakar, Allah Hassan Abubakar is his full name, out of Ghana. Spent a little time at university in Ghana, choosing the university route over going professional immediately. Had the opportunity then to come over for Dayton. He's a Ghana U20 player, but coming over to Dayton kind of ended that career as he didn't have the opportunities to travel anymore back to Ghana. So maybe a player, if he gets into Major League Soccer, is able to find a starting spot, could get himself back in the Ghana national team setup. A free kick will now be called.
He's definitely improved his stock here at the Combine. He's shown well. He played a little defensive midfield in the second half of day one and didn't look quite as comfortable, but showing that maybe he's better on the ball than people thought he might be. The defensive side has not been an issue for him. He's cut out a lot of danger. Physically, he's dominated some smaller players. Certainly, that won't always be the case in the pros when you're going against the likes of Josie Altidore and Fernando Adi, for instance, in MLS. But a guy that maybe teams look at and say, could fill in for us, maybe get a year of mostly USL experience and a scattering of MLS games, but could develop into something special.
And maybe better on the ball than most center backs, but not good enough to be a center midfielder.
At least in this Combine, yeah, at least in this Combine.
So Jones, number 49, and Awua standing over this one. It'll be Jones with the shot. Konofsky's able to hold it after a little bobble as that free kick comes through. For the blue team, in Team Copa, a couple guys on the bench that we will see in the second half that people are interested in. Russell Cicerone out of SUNY Buffalo for Team Copa, as well as Adonijah Reed and Brian Wright, the two Canadians who have played up top at times throughout this Combine. Connor Maloney, Dominic Oduro, who started, not that Dominic Oduro, but started at right back in this Combine and then played holding midfield, much more comfortable looking in the second Combine game. A few players on the bench that could come in here.
Dominic Oduro, if he does end up in MLS and sticking with the team, that's going to be, for the first 6 months or so, the first thing everybody says after introducing him. No, not that Dom. Not the Papa John's loving Dom.
Mafeka pushing forward. Epps out wide on the wing. He curls across in. He set up the lone goal in the last game for Team Copa. It was his cross that was deflected. Nazim Bartman put that shot in. Bartman, a player that people were excited to see in this competition, coming out of South Florida, a Tyler College transfer international. Similar story, of course, as it sounds to Dom Dwyer. He's had a quiet combine, even with that one goal.
He has, and you look at a lot of these players and the attacking side of the ball and ones that want to show well in that sense, and it's tough. These players don't know each other. They've been at home for the holidays. They haven't been playing in high-level games, at least formally, since the end of the college soccer season. So they're coming in with rust. They're coming in trying to figure things out on the fly, and I don't think coaches will look at this and say, oh, well, you didn't perform. That's the final strike against you, unless they already had questions.
DeFlowey will take this corner kick. He floats it in the near post, headed away by Gressel. Mafeka brings it down. He cuts back. Space to shoot now. Mafeka rips it into the corner. Lindo Mafeka out of the University of South Florida with the opening goal. A wonder strike from about 20 yards out, and Team Copa takes a 1-0 lead.
Certainly put his foot through that one. He found the space and struck it well there. A little bit of a slow reaction perhaps from Klonowski. See this angle. Through traffic, that's tough, but that's in an area where you'd expect him to push that out. It had a little bit of knuckle on it. The pace was very, very good, but not
Goal
a final moment of the half for the
53,
goalkeeper.
And we come to a close of that first half. The final player of the half, a goal for Lindo Mafeka out of the University of South Florida. So he joins his teammate Nazim Bartman on the scoring sheet in this combine. Mafeka beating Zico Lewis, it looked like, with that initial touch, being able to then rip that strike on goal. As you said, it, a lot of players in different positions trying to show well for themselves here in this first half. Ja'Cory Hayes getting to play a little higher up the field as well. Jacob Nerwinski pushed over to the other side. Napo Matsoso playing in midfield. So a few different players getting a couple different looks from them. Andrew, let's look at the first half highlights and see how we got here. Team Control and Team Copa. Team Copa up 1-0 so far. They are coached by Bo Oshani. For Team Control, under Kevin Anderson at the University of Columbia. And Andrew, Eric Klonowski, you talked about it day 2. Day 3, 2 bobbles. One, he was able to make the save off the second shot, and that one from Mafeka that he wasn't able to push away.
You wonder if some nerves have got to him here because he didn't have the best of first 2 days, but you know, that is a tough shot to save. No doubt about it. The power's there. There's a little bit of movement, but it's within his area. He's a big goalkeeper with a lot of range, a lot of reach. That was one you'd like to see him get a hand on, tip out over, but maybe nerves getting to the goalkeeper there. As it stands, though, a good start. Here are the highlights as we go in.
Let's look at how we got here. A 40-minute half for these two sides. Team Copa in blue. That's Ibo Bise, Generation Adidas player, laying the ball off for Hayes. Hayes curls that shot and can't get it on frame from the tight angle. For the other side, the team in white, Matsoso putting it in the path of Gressel, and Gressel's shot just wide.
Just can't get it on frame there, but good movement from Gressel. You see he understands where that space is going to be. Good recovery there by Abu Bakar. Just throws him off enough to keep it wide.
Curled out wide. Adui Achim getting forward on this play as he links up with his team and plays the cross in. Ja'Cory Hayes has found a little bit of space on the top of the box. This early shot here from Epps. Klonowski, as you mentioned, spilling that ball in front, able to make the recovery save and keep Ibo Bise from getting the goal. And Klonowski making the clean save off this one from Aaron Jones.
What we didn't see from Ibo Bise there was the composure he needed to finish that one. He had time, he had space. Just take a second, make sure you put it in a place the goalkeeper can't get to.
And this was the goal, the cutback from Mafeka from the top of the box. He rips that shot through 2 defenders, and he's able to beat Klonowski. You see here from this angle, Andrew, you think maybe could have made a save off this one.
A little bit unsighted there, but he had time, and you see him recognize it. He doesn't get his feet planted. He can't quite get a hand on that one. But Mafeka has impressed me over these 3 days. In space, running forward, he's got an element of – he's dynamic at times. And to see that from him, to see that right foot really come through the ball and have clean contact, that's a technical skill you want to see.
Well, we'll be back in just a few moments here on MLSsoccer.com with the second half of this matchup. Team Copa versus Team Control were followed immediately after this with another game, Team Chaos versus Team Tango, the final day of the 2017 MLS Player Combine here on MLSsoccer.com.
Jake.
Kicking off here for the second half, the third day of Combine play here. Team Copa versus Team Control. 1-0 lead right now. Team Copa, a goal through Lindo Mafeka. A number of changes coming out at halftime. Matt Doyle joining myself, David Goss, and Andrew Wiebe here for this second half at the StubHub Center. Doyle, is there anything big that popped out to you after that first half?
Well, it was big to see Jeremy Ebobisse play. I had my money on him not even suiting up for this combine. So the fact that he did play tells me that maybe Minnesota's rethinking their number one choice. Perhaps Abu Danladi is in play for them. Perhaps they're even going to trade out of that spot. That was the biggest thing. The other thing, we always look for sleepers in events like this, right? And for me, the sleeper is Napo Matsoso. Where is he from? Lesotho?
Yes.
Yes, there you go, Gasman. And I feel like every time there was a loose ball, he was around it. He was able to come out of scrums with possession. And look, that's a skill. That's something that you need in central midfield. I think he probably projects as more of a number 6 than the attacking role he played in college. So those were the two things that sort of caught my eye.
Russell Cicerone for Team Copa, number 42 out wide on that left wing, coming in for the second half. Nazim Bartman, number 52, chasing that ball there, comes in place of Ja'Cory Hayes in central midfield, and Dominic Odero swapping places with Kwame Awua at the holding midfield role in this Team Copa. Adonijah Reed out wide right, number 55, pressuring the ball here in front of Nerwinski as well, coming in here at halftime for this side, this team in blue. Me and Andrew mentioning Matsoso opening up Gressel for the best opportunity of the first half for his side in white, Team Control.
I'm looking at matchups this half. I'm looking at, especially here, Adonijah Reed and Nerwinski. Nerwinski tested out of this world physically. I want to see how Reed, a younger guy, goes up against him. Can he get separation against a guy that really took it off the charts when it came to the shuttle, to the 30-yard dash, to the vertical leap?
Fernandez comes in up top in place of Guillermo Delgado for Team Control. Out left, Jalen Brown. Jackson Ewell remaining in central midfield alongside now Chris Wingate, as well as Julian Gressel and Daniel Johnson returning in at right midfield, number 23 in white. Out of Louisville, he was the star of the first day. A quieter second day of Combine play, but still showing some good pieces of his game. And now the first time we'll see him at least start his play out wide right. A battle in that back on that far side. Andrew Wheeler Aminu at Harvard, who's played mainly in holding midfield, coming in at right back. And now Jordan Wilson will be partnered by Justin Schmidt out of University of Washington, with Jacob Nerwinski staying in at left back.
Jackson Ewell had a chance to play him in there, just couldn't quite get that final ball right. But I like the fact we're going to see Ebobisse for another half. And, 30 minutes isn't much. He didn't have too many opportunities to get into space and do something special in front of goal. The one that was basically a wide-open net that Klinowski was able to get back in front of there. But I like that little moment from early on against Wilson. He kind of put his shoulder into him, got a little bit of space. The ball into the box wasn't quite right, but that strength and the run, those are things that coaches like to see.
He showed a little game savvy as well. I think he had a very nice dummy at one point and was spreading the ball to the flanks a little bit. The one thing I didn't see from him was separation from his defender. I thought there were a couple of moments where I was a little surprised by that, to be honest with you. But we'll see. He's coming in here rusty. Everybody else has had a full week of games and practice to get sharp.
That ball too long for Johnson. Kwame Awua taking that turnover, playing at left back now. Matt, he's a player you've seen a lot of coming from your alma mater in UConn, but he played at left back to start the Combine, moved into an attacking midfield role, started this game at holding midfield, now over at left back, Have you heard anything about his potential prospects at the next level, positionally, draft-wise?
No. I think that he's a guy who might not go until the third round. That said, he is helped by the fact that he will count as a domestic player for every team in MLS, unlike in years past. Canadians coming through certain academies will have a domestic tag in both countries. That said, the fact that he's a tweener is hurting him. And I think he's a guy who will probably have to prove it somewhere in USL or NASL for a year or two before he gets an MLS call.
Jackson Ewell, the Generation Adidas player out of Minnesota, a player that Manny Lagos and Adrian Heath told us they are very familiar with, especially Manny Lagos has known him since he's about 10 years old. So not many surprises for him in this combine, watching a player like that. Now Awua pushing forward from his fullback position. He tries to play it into the path of Ibo Bise. Ibo Bise cutting back on Wilson. Laying it off now for Bartman, and finally tackled away in the end by Ewell.
That was better from Obise in terms of creating a little bit of separation and a little bit of distance. Do want to see him finish that play, or at least drive the ball into the box a little bit, but can't blame him too much for being unselfish.
One-on-one defending there from Abu Bakar to take it off the feet of Fernandez. Connor Maloney played most of his career at Penn State at winger, played most of his time here at Combine at winger. In this game now at right back for Team Copa, number 51 on the bottom of your screen. A number of players forced to change around their positions here on this third day to let coaches see maybe a couple moves for them at the next level. Abubakar up the field to Ibo Bise. Ibo Bise holds off Wilson. Lays it out wide for Cicerone. Cicerone now one-on-one. He curls across it, and Schmidt's able to head it away, and Brown cleans it up.
There's a good strength and a good touch from Ibo Bise, and a nice left-footed cross, off-foot cross from Russell Cicerone.
Cicerone's the guy coming from a small school, had the ability to improve his draft stock, showing he could play against a higher level of player. Where do you think, or where could you expect to see a guy like that fall?
I think he's a fringe first-round pick, and look, part of it is he has the bad luck of being in a draft that's absolutely loaded with winger talent.
Cicerone trying to show off a little bit more. Wheeler Aminu able to keep him away.
Guys like Jonathan Lewis, Zico Lewis, even Daniel Johnson and Nico Hansen, they'll be able to run away from you. I don't think Russell Cicerone has that type of speed, so he's going to have to find different ways to beat you. Obviously, that can be done in MLS. Look at Tommy McNamara. But he's going to have to show that level of cleverness and incisiveness in the final third.
Reed loses the ball. Now Brown up the field. And Nerwinski putting it out off of Maloney to keep possession for his side. Jacob Nerwinski, we mentioned his physical abilities. Trying to show that he could be a little bit versatile as well. Jalen Brown, Xavier Musketeer losing possession. Now Dominic Oduro keeping that ball cycling at holding midfield. He's looked comfortable there, Doyle. He looked at times lost at right back, showed athleticism, but he's looked very comfortable moving the ball around. We saw him open up play for Cicerone just a few moments ago at that holding midfield role.
He's looked much better there than he did at right back. You could tell he knows where he wants to be. He's taken up the right spots to support possession and even initiate some stuff. I don't know if his passing is quite there, but that's the type of thing you draft a guy and you bring him into camp. So you get a good 4 or 5 weeks of taking a look at it.
Schmidt goes up over Ibo Bise and wins the header. Now back on the ball is Team Copa in blue. A long shot coming away and just inches wide there from Bartman, trying to equal his college teammate in Mafeka to scoring a long-range goal. Konofsky able to get enough of a touch to it as we go out for a corner kick. And we're joined once again by Ziggy Schmidt. Ziggy, we
guys, how you guys
appreciate
doing? I'm doing fine. How are you guys doing? It was a fantastic goal in the first half. Huh?
Absolutely. Long strike from Mafeka. Matt Doyle not quite happy with Eric Klanowski's goalkeeping at the end of that play as Kwame Awuah prepares to take this corner kick. A left-footed service clipped in at the top of the box and headed away by Fernandez. So it'll go for another Team Copa corner coming up here. 50 minutes into an 80-minute match here at the StubHub Center. The final day of Player Combine action before the 2017 SuperDraft. Corner kick curled in and knocked away. Abubakar goes up, and he's able to win the header. It's finally cleared by team control all the way out to midfield, where Oduro picks it up. Ziggy, the big conversation's been, of course, Jeremy Ibobise, Generation Adidas player. We didn't expect to see him in this game at all. We didn't expect to see him in Combine at all as Bartman gets on the ball in the attacking third. Lays it back for Mafeka. Mafeka curling it to the far post, headed away by Wilson. What have you heard about his deciding to play or it being decided that he will play? What does that mean to you, and what have you seen from his performance?
Well, I think it's great that he's out here playing. You know, I heard there was a little bit of a medical issue, so hopefully that was obviously that was completely resolved, or else he wouldn't be out here. He definitely had a tremendous opportunity in the first half to finish a goal. Didn't do well with that. You know, he looks a little bit disconnected, maybe because he hasn't played in the first two games and he's getting his feet on the ground. You know, you could see some of the runs early that he has some quality, but it's been a pretty quiet game for him.
These two teams, their last opportunities to show off for these coaches. Third day of Combine, Ziggy. Is there something else that you're looking for? Is there something else that these players can do? We've seen a lot of guys shifted around positionally. You told us the coaches have opportunities to communicate with these Combine coaches to talk to them about where they want to see guys.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, that's something that you see happening in the Combine. You see players get shifted around. One of the things as an MLS coach, and it's happened here again, that I'm really disappointed in is the allocation of players to the teams just isn't very good. So you have some teams that only have two center backs, like for example Team Copa. So you got the same two center backs playing 90 minutes almost all the time, and then you got other teams that have five center backs, and you don't see guys play enough. And we really have to do something at the Combine to make that allocation of teams. There's got to be a better balance in the teams.
Nerwinski.
My pet peeve, sorry.
Nerwinski playing out of position. Ziggy Schmidt trying to make a better future MLS Combine for all of us. Abubakar able to clear his lines. Another, we'd say, me and Andrew were saying in the first half, steady, impressive performance from Lawless Abubakar. He's put himself in the conversation, Doyle, as one of the top center backs, probably a top 15 pick right now?
I think definitely a top 15 pick. I think he'll probably be the second center back off the board after Miles Robinson. I mean, Brandon Aubrey's going to drop a little bit because he was so poor the first two games and because he just did not test well. Aubrey still has a chance to go ahead of Abubakar, but look, the Combine doesn't mean everything, but it doesn't mean nothing. And having a guy show up and Ziggy said on day one, look and smell and feel like a real center back, that does matter. And I think he's helped himself quite a bit over the past week.
Important to note that Brandon Aubrey will not be starting the second game here for Team Chaos. Sagal and DeVries will start in the center back positions for them.
Justin Schmidt getting off the bench in the second half in this one after not getting the start at center back. Teaming Jordan Wilson at the back for Team Control and White as Daniel Johnson cuts in field looking for a teammate. Gets it on the foot of Ewell. Ewell cuts back, tries to curl a shot, and it's blocked. Once again, Daniel Johnson making something happen off the wing, though. Playing out wide right, Ziggy, he played almost the entire time so far in this Combine out left, coming in field on that left foot, showing some versatility.
No, he did well. He came inside, and it was a great ball. He hit to Jackson. A little bit disappointed that Jackson didn't continue that ball, go to his left foot, because he's got two good feet. That one might have been more effective.
Ibobise making the run through. He gets the shot away, and he rips it in. Jeremy Ibobise, Generation Adidas player at a Duke University, did not play the first two Combine games, gets a goal in 55 minutes. And Ziggy, you could see that run. He pulled the defender in. He makes the run into the box, and a pretty strong finish.
Yeah, did I say he was having a quiet game a few minutes ago? Obviously, he finishes that really well, finishes like a champion. Good first touch, onto a strong left foot, and he put it far post, exactly where it needs to go. I mean, it was a great finish. And left-footed guys are always, for some reason, you always draw your attention a little bit.
You could see the relief on his face, too, afterwards. A little bit of a celebration. We don't see much of that here at the Combine. Of course, these games don't mean too much in a competitive sense. But in a professional sense, in a future sense, in a career sense, they do mean something. If Minnesota United was trying to get a better look at him here, that's a moment that they'll like.
Guys, I take him number one, and I don't think about it. Honestly, his ability to hold the ball up and spread it around to attacking wingers, his ability to, I think, outthink defenders, and his ability to be in the right spots to poach a goal or two. Ziggy's right. He had to finish that one in the first half, but just the fact that he was there to get that chance, eventually you put those away. I think it's an open and shut case with this kid. The only question I have is, does Minnesota trade out of that spot to get something a little bit more, because they already have Christian Ramirez, a number 9, who I think is going to be a good player in this league.
That goal works for him both ways, right? All of a sudden, if his value goes up on the trade block,
yeah.
Good news there. And
our friend
you like that as well.
Yeah, our friend Adrian Heath is out there giving a fist pump, I'm sure.
And Minnesota need players. That's one thing to remember here. It's not as if they're looking for 1, 2 guys, maybe one guy to make the roster here. That'd be nice, but they'd like to have more. And if they can flip him, Siggy, into multiple players or multiple assets in their roster building process, that's going to be extremely valuable.
No, that's the most valuable part. If there's somebody interested in him, and as a team like Minnesota, if you can get 2 players rather than 1, and so maybe you drop off and you don't get Ibuise, but you end up with Dunladi, and you end up with another piece, then it's not too bad. So you got to look at it. And Ibuise, the same is a little bit like Kyle Larin. He didn't really score all that many goals in college, but Kyle certainly had a very explosive year when he got into MLS, and he has the potential to do the same.
And that's where Heath's imagination might get started. He says, hey, I was the guy who got this going. I was the guy who got Dom going. But he said yesterday that they're all a little bit different players. They're not exactly the same, of course, but he really does have a passion for working with young strikers, and it's got to be a project along with Christian Ramirez, who's not exactly young, who's really accomplished.
Gressel gets a shot away, and it goes across the face of goal.
Hands up. He says, where's the run, guys?
Yeah, where are you going, Jaylen Brown?
But different players, different styles, but all guys who can fit into that number 9 role. The question is, as you said, Doyle, is that a position of immediate need for them, or do they have the time, do they have the patience, do they have the roster to take him and stash him, or maybe give him a few games and play him in USL some?
Awuah pushing forward. He beats 2 defenders coming out of that left back spot. Gets it off to the feet of Bartman. And now Mafeka. Kwame Awuah out of Brampton, Ontario, played in Sigma FC with a certain Kyle Larin, as that cross will lead, it looks like, to a corner kick. He and Kyle Larin both committed to UConn at the same time. Kyle Larin, of course, leaving a little bit earlier for better things. Kwame Awuah trying to follow in his footsteps now. Sigma FC has been a pipeline for top-level professional players and talent over the last few years. Corner kick coming from Cicerone on that far side, right in front of Team Tango in red. It's knocked away by Klanowski. They'll go out for another corner. Team Tango, you see there in red, sporting Generation Adidas center back Miles Robinson, one of the biggest names here. Joseph Holland and Brant Bronico, 2 players in midfield who have put on some good shows for us so far. And Jonathan Lewis out of Akron, another Generation Adidas player up top. They'll be kicking off 11:45 a.m. Pacific time. Our next game against Team Chaos in orange, starting Nick Depew up top at a University of Santa Barbara. Right now it's Team Copa in blue, leading 1-0 over Team Control, as Awuah all the way back at midfield picks this ball up. These 2 teams now trying to get themselves back organized off that corner kick attempt. We're at the halfway point of this second period here at the StubHub Center. David Goss, Andrew Wiebe, Ziggy Schmidt, and Matt Doyle coming to you on the final day of Combine play. Tomorrow we'll be downtown, the LA Live center for the 2017 MLS SuperDraft. 3 p.m. Eastern time on MLSsoccer.com. Cicerone coming forward now, one-on-one with Wilson. His shot is blocked away. And Reed's able to recover possession. Adonijah Reed, Canadian GA, signing along with Shamit Shome, just 17 years old, the youngest player at this combine. Dominic Oduro gets pushed off the ball, no foul called. And Reed was a bright spot in the opening game, playing deeper as the number 10. He's had a quiet 2 days now, Andrew, both at center forward and now playing out wide right.
Yeah, it's been a tough time at times for him, and they're looking for a position for Adonijah Reed. And he's smaller, he's a younger guy, he's playing against guys 2-3 years older than he is, but that's the reality in the pros. He's going to be playing against men. I think, once again, he's a player that you stash a little bit, that you say, hey, we see potential in him. We see the ability to work with him for a few years. We see a position that he might fit into or a projection that he might fit into on our team, and you take a chance. The nice thing is, with that GA contract, he's not going to hurt your cap situation. And now with the addition of these young Canadian players as domestics across the board, there's no issue with the international spot as well. And for so long, that has been something that held young Canadian players back. It's so hard for teams to justify spending that international spot on a player who may not be able to contribute immediately.
Bartman losing possession, but just a few moments ago, that turn from Ibo Bise at midfield to get the defender away, lay that pass off. He's looked very good.
His balance is good, and he beats the central defenders to the spot just about every time. Now, that will change in MLS because he's going to be playing against better, faster, stronger players. But to me, he's one of the guys here who looks like a pro already. Again, to borrow Ziggy's line, looks, smells, feels like a true center forward to me.
We mentioned his unique year last year, Ziggy, playing for the Charleston Battery, those 5 games, playing with the USU 20s 9 times, not playing with Duke University. If you're a coach assessing him, how does that change the way you look at him, or is it he is the player that he is and it doesn't matter?
Well, he's the player that he is, so it really doesn't matter on one extent. I mean, his advisors, whomever they were, obviously the trade-off was, does he stay at Duke and get 20, 25 games in there? He got less games in total. So was that really the right thing for him? Is something that's an individual decision. But getting his feet wet in the professional ranks in the USL is something that will not have hurt him.
And as we discussed what Minnesota will do with this number 1 pick, where Ibo Bise will go, it's important to remember it's not just Christian Ramirez that they see as a possible number 9, and that's certainly Ramirez's position, but Johan Venegas, who they traded for and who we saw at that center forward position against the U.S. in World Cup qualifying, is a guy, Adrian, he says he's going to try at that spot, that he sees potential there for. So when we look at the depth chart, that's something to remember when it comes to Ibo Bise in the number 1 pick.
Well, you also have to look at, I think the thing with Minnesota is Ramirez is not a proven quality at the MLS level. He's been a proven quality at the NESL level, but he hasn't proven himself at the next level, so there's a question mark there. And Venegas really didn't prove himself as a center forward with Montreal. He had a lot more success coming on as a winger. So there's options there, and getting another forward into that mix is certainly something that could help them.
Oduro stepping forward and picking this ball up after the run from Awua was ended by team control in white. A couple substitutions for team control, as we've seen. Players can return. Tier Young at number 32 there in midfield, and Zico Lewis out wide right coming back on the field for team control.
And then Kwame Awua had a cup of coffee at halftime or something because he's looked so good at left back so far after being kind of middling throughout the rest of this combine.
He started his college career there at left back at UConn. His second year, he moved upfield to left midfield. As he stayed there, Doyle, he moved into attacking midfield. But that may have been more to do with the quality on UConn rather than maybe where he projects or where his best ability is as a player.
I mean, he does have the ability to hit the final ball a little bit.
Jalen Brown trying to go one-on-one with Abu Bakar. Now Kristen Tieryoung with the shot just wide.
He does have the ability to hit the final ball a little bit, but not well enough to play as a 10 in MLS. I question whether even to play as a wide midfielder in MLS. But as you can see, when he has the field in front of him on the overlap, he can be very dangerous. The question with Kwame Awua is, can he defend? Will he be able to keep a guy like Kikuta Mena in front of him if he gets isolated. It's we all love overlapping attacking fullbacks, but part of the job in MLS is to keep guys like that from getting into the box time and time again. I have real questions about Kwame Awuah in that regard.
Can anyone in MLS keep Kikuta Mena in front of them?
Hey, Kikuta Mena is on the field over here at StubHub Center with the U.S. national team. Let's bring him over, stick him in the combine. Of course, news coming out that he's now a U.S. citizen. That job got done, but not yet eligible to play for the U.S. national team, but an exciting prospect. And the Vancouver Whitecaps staff is here right next to us. Maybe we should pull them in and get their opinion on what's going on.
U.S. national team training across the street. Bruce Arena in his first camp with his team, bringing in 32 guys. Bill Hamid forced to leave with an injury as Cicerone pushes forward. Of course, myself and Andrew Reeby warmed up the field for them yesterday just to show them a few runs, see how it works. As Reed cuts into the box, looks for Ibo Bise. Ibo Bise back on the ball now. Adonijah Reed with the quick pass into the middle. Cicerone looking for space to shoot, and Wilson blocks that.
See, and as a coach, the little bit that Reed showed there is what you're looking for. You're looking for those little flashes of brilliance, beating the guy in the box, hitting a good second cross in there, but you don't always get all the consistency, and that's what's missing from him still a little bit. But you're seeing flashes, and at his young age, that sometimes is enough to take a chance.
Epps now in the middle. He gets the shot away. Klanowski makes his second straight save. And Wheeler Aminu's able to save the ball from going out for a corner kick. And now Awuah will guide it out for a throw-in.
I think we need Peter Walton and some VAR right there, because I'm pretty sure that should be a corner kick for Team Copa.
Ibo Bise on the ball. Plays it up the line. Bartman out wide one-on-one with Wheeler Aminu. Cutting in field to the feet of Epps.
Oh, wow.
And Epps a poor ball on the switch of the field.
I think he was passing to Ziggy.
He saw me in the booth. He was trying to lay it up here.
Of course, you can go back to our last game on the MLS Combine streams as Fernandez goes down in the box, lays it off, gets the shot away, save made. What a big moment there for team control. Lolito Fernandez holding off his defender. It looked like shot coming away in the end by Jaylen Brown. Save made by Jake McGuire, though, at point-blank range.
And Willito Fernandez is still down. That was a brave play, we'll say, by both the forward, Willito Fernandez, and the defender, Sully Danke. Glad to see he didn't pick up an injury right there, because that could have been ugly.
So as I was saying, you can go back. You can listen to Peter Walton telling us a little bit about they're doing live VAR testing here and the potential of inserting VAR into Major League Soccer over the next 18 months. They're doing this testing under the guidance of IFAB, the International FA organization who coordinates all refereeing decisions around the world. Peter Walton telling us a little bit as well about the moves coming for Pro and the additions they hope and improvements over the course of the 2017 season so that a bunch of MLS coaches don't have to lose a few years off their life yelling and complaining about different moves. Peter Vermees yesterday telling us in one of our ETR sit-downs how nice it is to talk with the refs the week after when you calm down and how in the moment he gets. Peter Vermees not much of a yeller.
Oh, no, I don't think. Peter's not. You never see him yell.
Ziggy,
very calm, very considered on the sideline.
Who's the funniest coach that's been a yeller against you on the sideline?
Oh, the funniest one for sure is Dominic Kinnear. Dominic will come up with some lines that are, are pretty good sometimes. And I've known Dominic a long time and coached him as well. So, I can usually come back at him a little bit. But there's definitely some funny lines that come from him.
Zig, what do you make of what's happening with the Quakes right now, with the new GM coming in from AS Roma and maybe some uncertainty in that franchise? Is this a make or break year for Dominic?
I think it is a little bit for Dominic, but I think it's more so for the franchise and just the direction that they've taken. Sometimes I know it's going to sound like I'm a coach and I'm protecting coaches here.
Jaylen Brown curls a shot in. The Xavier Musketeer fighting space down the left wing, cuts in field, and tucks one into the far post past Jake McGuire's foot, bit Jake McGuire's hand. to make it 1-1 for Team Control.
That was a great goal. I mean, he cut inside into his strong foot, right foot, and just bent it right into the corner. I mean, definitely is, he's happy about it because that helps his stock rise a little bit.
And on that move,
Goal
it looks
by
like
Team
Jeremy
Control,
Ibobise is
number 20,
coming
Jalen
out.
Brown.
A true right back, and Aaron Jones comes back in. So Connor Maloney gets a little bit of respite and gets to move back up the field. Caught out of position there, Doyle, but not his natural position at right back.
Yeah, he looked very much like a guy who was playing right back for the first time. So I think we could forgive him a little bit, but Jalen Brown certainly had just had his moment right there. But, Ziggy, let's go back to what you were saying. Continue, please.
You got to remind me now. What was I talking about?
San Jose Earthquakes.
San Jose Earthquakes. No, it's I think, a rebuilding time for the entire organization because, I think they've fallen a little bit behind, and it's a really important time. I don't know. Again, this is me talking. I don't know if you necessarily have to go outside the country to find the GM because our league is a little bit unique, so it'll be interesting to see how that works out. And I don't think all the blame should be laid on Dominic Kinnear's doorstep because he needs the support of the organization. They need to be committed to bringing players in of the quality that he wants to have. So I think all that goes hand in hand and goes together.
Ziggy, you look at what's happened in San Jose, and they were a good veteran squad. Where in Major League Soccer do you find that line of trying to continue what has been good, and maybe it's time to rebuild, it's time to look forward because of the tight salary cap restrictions and the way the league is? Yeah,
it's time. What you're always looking for is to build a nucleus. And so San Jose years ago had that nucleus when they moved to Houston. That nucleus moved to Houston together. And since they've come back as the Earthquakes, they really, with the exception of Wondolowski, haven't really had a nucleus that goes beyond that. When you look down the middle of the field, they've got Bernardes now who's been there on a pretty consistent basis. But in the middle of midfield, there's been nobody you can say, oh, that's San Jose's central midfielder. You can't really say that's been their winger on a consistent basis. Those are their two center backs. Their goalkeeping situation changed with Bingham. So getting consistency down the spine of your team is something that San Jose is searching for.
Bartman turns that ball over. The pass behind Cicerone. Jackson Ewell trying to lay it out in front of the path of Julito Fernandez. And McGuire gets there first. The final 10 minutes of this first match of the day, the final day of player coverage here at the 2017 MLS Player Combine. Before we head to the MLS SuperDraft tomorrow, 3 o'clock Eastern Time on MLSsoccer.com. Coming up right after the finish of this one, 11:45 a.m. Pacific Time, Team Chaos versus Team Tango. Team Tango with a number of Generation Adidas players in their side that we're looking forward to seeing in Abu Danladi, Jonathan Lewis, and Miles Robinson. I'm going to allow only one of you to say, Jeremy Ibobise, what has impressed you from this game? What stood out to you, at least, from this game? We'll start with Andrew.
I still like Lindo Mafeka, and I think he's one of those guys when you're talking about maybe a sleeper, someone who can come in and be a difference maker off the bench or a developmental player. He could be that guy, but I still like Nerwinski. I know he hasn't looked as dominant on this left side, but when teams look at these outside back positions as a position where you need to get value in MLS, I think he's going to be a guy a lot of teams look at and say he could do something for us here in a couple of years, but maybe even early on with some spot starts.
For me, Ibobise is a kind of player, again, he can be a very, very good player for you. I think he has the ability that he can play on the flank as well. He's left-footed, which helps. It's always something that you're looking for. So he's a player that you definitely want to take a chance on. You don't always, as an MLS team, get an opportunity to draft that kind of a player. So you outside backs, generally you can sort of find them from year to year. Center backs, you can find some from year to year. But getting special attacking players is unique, and sometimes you got to just grab hold of it and say, let's hope for the best.
Matt Doyle, is there anything the stats or the data analytics are telling you?
Nothing yet, but my eyes tell me that Julian Gressel's really good. We had Sasha Sharovsky here before, and he was saying he thinks Gressel's maybe a Jordan Morris light type of guy who can play on the wing and stretch the field a little bit, perhaps. But to me, he looked like a really, really good central midfielder who can sort of drift around. Maybe a little bit like Andy Rose, a little bit more attacking. I would have no hesitation taking him with a first-round pick.
Reed able to draw a free kick.
I think Gressel is good. I agree with you. I think Holland's actually shown more than Gressel has, in this particular combine. The guy I was probably most impressed with today was Mafika, not just because of his goal. I thought his connecting ability, is he too small to play as a holding midfielder? Is he a winger? Position is a little bit of a question with him. He's also a foreign player, but in terms of reading the game, being involved in the game, I thought he had a good a half as anybody's had. So, unfortunately, that's what happens in the combine. You see little flashes, and then you got to make a determination of who is the guy that you think can do that on a more consistent basis.
Daniel Johnson on the ball there, Doyle. There's been some moments in this game now that he's moved centrally where the option that he wants isn't always there. He hasn't sat on the ball too long, but he hasn't made a lot of mistakes. He looks extremely confident, constantly has his head up. He's looked like a very good player once again.
Yeah, he has. I do wonder, though, because he does the same thing every time. He drops his left shoulder, half step, and then goes in the other direction. And once you see tape of that, I wonder, I don't think that's going to work every time in MLS the way it's worked every time in this combine. And eventually Matt Hedges comes in and just buries you. And you have to figure out what your other move is.
Unless you're Preki.
Unless you're Preki.
If you're Preki, you bring out the same move, and everybody keeps, okay, I know it's coming.
Yeah, and you score 120.
I just don't know when it's coming, and the same move seems to beat you all the time. So if you can perfect it. I once had a coach, he said it's better to be perfect with one move than to be 50% with four. So, it has a little bit of that. But I talked to Sasha as well about him because he was at Maryland before, and I said, what happened there? And he said, well, it was a little bit, they were deep in that position when he came in. There wasn't a lot of playing time for him. Maybe it was a little bit harder in a deep squad. And that's something else that you don't know about players is how are they going to react when they're not the big dog, when they're competing in a big pond with a lot of other big fish. How are they going to do?
Turnover to Fernandez. I'm going to go back the other way. Chris Wingate with the pass up the field, now back on the ball.
Wingate has actually impressed me a bit. He has the ability to do exactly that, to pick out some passes, and I think positionally he seems to understand the game, where he should be, where the danger's coming from. I don't know if he has the athletic profile that teams will look for, but this is the type of guy who I think could do some stuff down in USL or NASL for a good long while.
Zico Lewis getting stepped on, earning the free kick. Guys like Wingate, Ziggy, who get invited very late to this combine, not maybe in the conversation for a lot of coaching staffs. What can they do through this combine? Is it enough for them to maybe get a draft pick or brought in after the draft for a team to look at?
Both things are possible. I mean, obviously they get an opportunity to show themselves. And, I don't think a lot of people had Holland on their radar, prior to coming in here. But based on his performance, he's definitely drawn the attention of everybody. And then sometimes, what you're looking for at the end of the draft, you're saying, you know what, I sort of like this guy. We have a little bit of room in our preseason camp. We'd like to look at a few more bodies. Let's take a look at him. Maybe we invest in him by him playing for our USL team, and we see what comes from it. A good example of that in Seattle last year was Zach Mathers, who's got good possibilities as a good player. There were some deficiencies there. We've talked about those when he came in. We addressed those, but there was some soccer there that we really liked.
Connor Maloney on the ball here. That was Daniel Johnson on that free kick for team control in white, getting it onto the head of Justin Schmidt, who couldn't quite get it on frame.
Zig, the fact that Abu Bakar has come out here and played every minute and has looked mostly good doing it, and his body language has been good the entire time, I imagine it's an intangible, but it's something that I have to imagine coaches will notice.
No, one of the things that you definitely put on the positive side of the ledger for him is that, I don't think fitness is going to be an issue because, with the amount of time off that they've had at the college season, for him to be able to come here and play 3 games basically over 5 days and play every minute of every game is pretty impressive physically.
And you want that next to your bio. I'm a gamer. I'm a guy who's willing to go out there no matter the circumstance and play for the full 90.
No, definitely. And as a coach, you also know that, okay, here's a player, what do I need to work with him on? Here comes an opportunity here.
Played on here off the foot of Daniel Johnson, who got taken down. Nerwinski with the cross. Fernandez tries to caress it, and he can't control it, and it gets played out up to midfield to Wilson. Wilson sprays it wide once again to Nerwinski. Nerwinski cuts in field on his right foot, curls it towards the far post, and no teammate there.
Yeah, basically to finish what I was saying, so with Abubakar as a coach, you know now that, hey, this is a guy that I can work with on his technical skills because I don't have to spend a lot of extra time on his fitness, so I can really devote some time to that.
So that is it for our first game of the day. Team Copa versus Team Control. These players, a last opportunity to show off for these coaches before the Super Draft. And for you guys, a lot of different players. We just discussed it. You talked about Lindo Mafeka. What stands out at the end of this from what you've seen over the course of these 3 days?
Well, for him, it's his ability in space, and Doyle's right. What he showed today with a little bit of connection, or excuse me, Siggy was right. That's what you're looking for as well, because you don't want to look at him and say, oh, he's a one-track player. He's got this one skill, this one ability to affect the game. He found other ways to do it, and I think that's what this combine is about, finding those little nuggets that maybe you didn't see all the time in the college season and having them exhibit themselves.
Well, let's look at the highlights from this one. Team Copa with a 2-1 win over Team Control, getting us started here on the third day. 2 40-minute halves. Ja'Cory Hayes, a few opportunities in the first half, setting up Epps here, and Klinovsky, not the strongest of games from him. The first mistake, although he made a couple saves here.
But that's the play on this that you're looking at here. Ibo Bise with an open goal, with the ability to take a little time, have a little composure, and slot that one home. You want to see him finish that. Of course, later on he gets his goal.
He'd make up for it a little after that. Lindo Mafeka here, Ziggy, drops the hammer. He gets himself his first goal.
Drops the hammer with his off foot as well. Cuts back inside to his right. Doesn't hesitate, puts this. Could the goalkeeper have done better? Yes, I think he certainly should have, but it was still a pretty good strike.
Team Copa taking a 1-0 lead on the last kick of the first half, heading in to halftime. A couple opportunities in the second half for the side in blue. Nazim Bartman trying to get his first goal of the game, second of the combine, but Klinovsky getting a touch to it. And this was the goal here, Doyle. Ibo Bise, his first goal in any sort of MLS crest.
I mean, it was the run. It was the run that made it. He knew exactly what he was doing as soon as he released that ball. You give, you go, you get into the box, and he finished hard and well with his strong foot. It's what you want to see from a center forward.
A number of players able to show off in this game. Epps once again making a difference with that shot. The pass off the foot of Adonijah Reed, the young Canadian. And then on the flip side, Julito Fernandez doing a lot of work for his team, trying to get them level. And the shot saved here by McGuire. Fernandez going down with that injury, but was able to return and come back for his side. And Daniel Johnson pulling the strings a little bit once more. And Jalen Brown showing off for the fans.
What a strike this is. Cuts in, gets a little celebration there, but the bend, no chance for the goalkeeper.
Eden Hazard style right there.
No chance.
Xavier Musketeer curls that shot in. Nothing Jake McGuire could do about it, although his team would take a 2-1 victory out of this one. That's Jalen Brown's lone goal of the combine. So we'll be back in just 10 minutes with Team Chaos versus Team Tango. Number of top pick prospects, Generation Adidas players coming up here on MLSsoccer.com.